motherfucker.
The Jell-O Program, starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston and Phil Harris and his orchestra.
Thank you. This is Groucho Marx. Well, here I am, stepping in over my head again.
With Fibber McGee and Molly.
Folks, this is just as new to me as it is to you.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Benny. This is Rochester.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Well, what an original greeting.
Hello and welcome to another week of comedy, funny, haha, on Dwayne Old Time Radio. One thing, please subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy what I'm doing, subscribing is 100% free. Also, one more thing, if you have a few seconds or 1 minute, please leave a review on your preferred podcast service, especially if you're on Apple, Spotify, or really just your preferred podcast service. Thank you and hope you enjoy. Happy New Year and welcome to a new year of comedy, funny, ha-ha. Let's start the new year off with Vic and Sade. 3 episodes. The first is... They have some really weird titles sometimes. Flirch tries to call. June 5th, 1939. Second, a porch collapses. June 13th, 1939. And lastly, 2 tons of coal. July 5th, 1939.
Well, sir, it's late afternoon as our scene opens now. And here in the living room of the small house halfway up in the next block, we find Mr. Victor Gook and his son, Mr. Rush Gook. Vic has just this moment arrived home from the office. He's depositing his straw hat on top of the bookcase. Young Rush is seated at the library table, gazing somewhat blankly at the wall. And his father says to him,
"Are you in a trance, Pocket Watch?
I'm trying to figure something out.
When I greeted you joyously, your rejoinder was sluggish and preoccupied.
Uh-huh.
Your mother and Miss Stembottom got off on their automobile trip to Pontiac in good shape?
I guess so.
When'd they do back?
6:30 or 7. If it's any later, we're supposed to fix our own supper.
I enjoy trying my hand at culinary art on occasion. If your mother hasn't returned by 6:30, I'll put on an apron and fry you the tastiest round steak you ever put in your mouth. You still in a trance?
I'm thinking.
Whip out the tickets and I'll take you in on a rummy game.
Miss Harris just telephoned, gal.
Really? I trust she's in robust health?
Darnest mixed-up business you ever heard of.
How so?
Well, let's see if I can get it straight. Mr. Stembottom telephoned her to ask if she wouldn't get in touch with you and say that just before Mom and Miss Stembottom left for Pontiac, Hank Gutstop had called up here with the information... Oh, wait a minute, I left out a step. Some fella down at the Lazy Hours pool room telephoned Mom to say that Hank Gutstop had asked him to get a hold of you, but you weren't in your office, so he telephoned Mom and give her the information... Oh, that's not it either. I better start from the beginning. Miss Harris telephoned...
What in blazes you talking about, Harry?
Darned if I know.
Well, strap out the rummy cards and I'll make you look like 15 cents.
Okay.
I was down in the packing department a good while this afternoon where there aren't any telephones. That's why I couldn't be reached.
Uh-huh.
I expect Hank found himself embarrassed for ready cash again and wanted to hit me for 6 bits or $1.
No, I don't think so. It was something about YY Flirch being in town.
YY Flirch?
Ms. Harris called him I Blurch, but I expect it
You
was...
say he's in town?
I got the idea from what Miss Harris said he was...
Whereabouts?
Well, Miss Harris...
What's Miss Harris got to do with this?
I tried to explain that. Miss Harris...
If YY Flirch is in town, I want to see him. Where is he?
I don't know where he is.
What'd Mom say?
I haven't seen Mom. Her and Miss Stembottom left for Pontiac before school let out. I talked to Miss Harris.
And she told you YY Flirch is in town?
Well, she didn't know. All she said was...
what is this, Sam?
Some fella from the Lazy Hours pool hall telephoned Mom.
Is Y.Y. Flirch at the Lazy Hours pool hall?
I haven't the slightest idea. All I know is he called up Mom from there and said he was speaking for Hank Gutstock.
Well, you haven't seen Mom. How do you know anybody called her up?
Miss Harris told me.
Does Miss Harris know where Y.Y. Flirch is?
I doubt it. See, Mr. Stembottom called her up to say that...
Mr. Stembottom?
Yeah.
Well, what's he got to do with it?
I think I can explain if you'll listen. Mrs. Stembottom
Now we got Mrs. Stembottom in this muddled mass of confusion.
Well, I'm only attempting to clarify.
I bet any amount of money Y.Y. Flirch got in on the 2:50 train from Decatur and is going to grab the 5:15 for Peoria. What time is it now?
Clock on the bookcase is a little fast. I expect...
It's 5 minutes till.
5 minutes till 5?
No, midnight. Listen, if Y.Y. Flirch is in town, I want to get in touch with him. He's been to an important meeting of lodge officials in Decatur. He'll be able to tell me a good many vital what's Ms. Harris's telephone number? You know it?
Yeah. It's either 9985W or 2360J.
Well, which?
Try 7761L.
7761L?
Yeah.
You sure?
Pretty sure. Call it and see. 2497K and 6224M are numbers that's also buzzing around in my skull, but I'm pretty sure...
Oh, for gosh sakes, P.
Try 7761L. I'm convinced it's correct.
Imagine calling Ma Donahue across the alley to get information about Y.Y. Flirch. 7761L, please. Yeah. If you give me a bum steer, there'll be severe reckoning.
I never guaranteed it was 7761L. Might be 2996W. Might be 4363J. I'm only common ordinary flesh and blood. I can't...
Hello. A man's voice.
Human flesh and blood.
Hello. I guess I got the wrong number. I wanted to reach Mrs... What? Oh, I see. I have got the right number then. You're one of Ms. Harris's roomers, huh? I see.
Mr. Sludge.
Glad to hear it. The slob wants to chat.
Mr. Sludge is quite a talker. And you're perfectly right calling him a slob. In the summertime, he don't wear socks, even with his Sunday suit. And he don't like shoelaces in his shoes. He likes to hear the flippity-flap of his feet squashing.
You're right about the Chicago White Sox. They're a great team, but is Ms. Harris there? Oh, she isn't. I see. Well, thanks just the same. I'll call her some other... What? Philadelphia Athletics? I have to hang up now. Goodbye. Not home.
I don't think she'd have any information about Y.Y. Flirch even if she was home. She was just repeating what Mr. Stembottom told her when...
Oh, forget Mr. Stembottom. I have to get a hold of Y.Y. Flirch. Past 5 o'clock. I'll call the Lazy Hours pool hall and talk to Hank Gutstock.
Well, he's not at the Lazy Hours pool hall.
Well, you said he was, doggone it.
No, I never.
Well, what did you say?
I said a fella speaking for Hank called from the Lazy Hours pool room.
What is his name?
Yop. Gop.
Now we got guys named Yop or Gop in on this.
Might have been Fop.
And from what source did you obtain your information about Yop, Gop, or Fop?
Ms. Harris.
Oh, we're back to her again, are we?
Gov, I can explain all this, I think, if you'll give me a chance.
Go right ahead.
Who's the girl at the telephone switchboard down at the plant?
3 times?
Yeah.
Miss Clem.
Is she on duty now?
Yeah. Why?
Well, she's another party mixed up in the...
Oh, my.
Well, hey, Gov, I
Name
can't...
over our cast of characters. I'd like to hear a complete list of the well-meaning human beings that want me to know Y.Y. Flirch is in town.
Well, I'm one. Mr. Yop, Gop, or Fop. Hank Gutstock, Mom, Miss Stembottom, Mr. Stembottom, Miss Clem, and Miss Harris.
8 people want me to get in touch with Y.Y. Flirch, and yet in spite of their united efforts, I can't get in touch with Y.Y. Flirch.
Well, everybody tried. Nobody fell down on the job. Why,
Did you
Chuck?
say you had it figured out how the strange pattern was wrought?
I think I have.
Well, elucidate.
Huh?
Explain.
Well, earlier in the afternoon, Mom and Miss Stembottom were here getting ready to climb in the automobile and head for Pontiac.
Clear as a bell so far.
Telephone rang.
Yup, gopper, fop on the wire.
No, Miss Clem on the wire.
Well, you said this guy from the Lazy
Well,
Hours...
let me
pool-
tell it, Gal.
Shoot.
Miss Clem on the wire. She says, is Mr. Gook there, Miss Gook? Mom says, no. Miss Clem says, I thought he might be home because he's not here in the office. Mom says, was it something important?
How do you know what Mom said?
I don't. I'm reconstructing what happened out of my head.
Reconstruct your way.
Mom says, was it something important? Miss Clem says, a gentleman named Mr. Gop or Fop, just called, from the Lazy Hours pool hall. He said he was speaking for a Mr. Gutstop. Mr. Gutstop wanted to notify Mr. Gook, a friend of his, Mr. Y.Y. Flirch, is in town. Got that much of it straight?
Yeah.
All right. Mom turns to Miss Stembottom and says, I know Victor'd like to have this information, but we're leaving for Pontiac. How can I get word to him? Miss Stembottom says, I'll call up Fred. Fred can telephone Victor a little bit later and tell him.
Uh-huh.
So Miss Stembottom telephones Mr. Stembottom at the foundry. Still all clear?
Yeah.
All right. Ma and Miss Stembottom drive off to Carberry, and Mr. Stembottom waits a half an hour and then calls this number in hopes of getting in touch with you and handing over the information.
But nobody's home.
Nobody's home.
So
Fred decides to telephone a neighbor lady and have her relay the message.
And that's where Miss Harris comes in.
That's where Miss Harris comes in.
She calls here and you talk to her.
She calls here and I talk to her.
And that's the story.
And that's the story.
Very pretty tale.
Yes, indeed.
8 kind friends and true. All breaking their back so I can get in touch with Y.Y. Flirch. Here I stand helpless and wretched. Still not in touch with Y.Y. Flirch.
Well, why don't you attempt to get a hold of that fella Gop or Fop? He's the key man.
Where could I locate him?
Lazy Hours Pool Hall is the place he called your office from.
You know the number?
I don't know any pool hall telephone numbers. Mom had thrown me over the People's Bank building.
There's somebody.
It might be Miss Harris. Might be Mr. Stembottom. Might be Hank Gutstop.
Hello? Yes? Oh, hello there.
Y.Y. Flirch?
Yeah, Y.Y. Flirch.
It all come out okay after all.
Hello there, Y.Y., you old horse thief. In hac agricola sim spinel hunk. Ad nauseum cornucopia dum slack etch.
Which concludes another brief interlude at the small house halfway up in the next block. And there we leave Crisco's Vic and Sade until the next time.
Well, sir, it's a few minutes past 9 o'clock in the evening as we enter the small house halfway up in the next block now. And here in the living room we find Mr. and Mrs. Victor Gook abiding quietly at home. They've been playing rummy for the last hour or so, and the game has begun to take on a sluggish, lackluster quality. Listen.
I win.
Let's see your cards. Sure you win. Got 3 queens, 3 deuces, and the 4, 5, 6, and 7 of hearts.
Why, there was interest in rummies after about so long a time. The spades start resembling clubs.
You any quit?
Would you just as soon?
All right. Not much kick to the game when your opponent's half asleep.
I am a little tired. Too early to go to bed?
Courthouse clock struck 9 about 5 minutes ago.
I bet I sleep so sound tonight you could send my undershirt to Detroit, Michigan Parcel Post.
Paper states showers sometime before morning. I hope they hurry along and cool things off.
Oh. Deal out a few more rummies. Might as well be doing something.
Okay.
Kind of funny that Davis boy storming in here this evening, wasn't it?
I've learned that there's nothing extraordinary in the most ununderstandable behavior on the part of 14-year-old boys. Being the father of a 14-year-old boy, I'm tutored in all
Here's your 14-year-old boy now. Raj?
Hi.
Here's a beautiful bouquet of tickets for you, Charlie.
Thanks. Hope I can tell the hearts from the clubs.
The hearts are red, the club's black.
I mean the diamonds from the spades. After so many rummies, I get so I can't keep my mind on what I'm
Mr.
doing.
Davis didn't disturb you when he come after Rotten Suitcase a while ago, did he?
Not too much. Of course, I had to climb upstairs after.
Well, it helped along the excitement. By George, I never enjoyed such high-class excitement in my life.
What excitement do you have reference to, Sunburn?
Center Street.
Has there been excitement on Center Street? I'm discarding the 6 of clubs.
I can use it in my business. I beat your father 3 times in a row.
And didn't Rooster explain?
Explain what?
About Center Street.
No, what about it?
Rooster never said a word.
He come to the door all out of breath and wanted that big old imitation leather suitcase you borrowed off his brother. Gov went after it, and he grabbed it and was gone.
Well, I'll be darned.
Why? What happened on Center Street?
A house collapsed.
Ah.
You telling the truth, you don't know about it?
We've been sitting here playing cards ever since around 7:30.
Never heard no noise? Never heard no people yelling?
Never heard a sound. Telephone hasn't even rung. Except for Rooster storming in, it's been quiet as my thumb.
Beats the Dutch.
A house collapsed, you say, Temple Bells?
Yeah.
I collapsed one time myself. I was on the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio, where I just officiated at a wedding ceremony. After kissing the bride, I pocketed the $5 bill given me by the bridegroom and prepared...
You know that place in the 300 block on South Center with the second-story porch that runs clear around the whole house?
Has it got fragile hedgerows and morning glories and a solid gold belfry which catches a dazzling...
Give me a
ray?
show, Gov. That place collapsed this evening.
Here's a 9 of spades, Sadie. I trust it
You
will be
were
of
talking
some...
about that big boarding house-looking place, Willie?
Sure. It collapsed at 8 o'clock.
What you mean by collapsed?
Fell down.
Ah, a great big mud.
The whole thing didn't fall down. Just that second-story veranda fell down. But to look at it, you'd think the entire house had been hit by a cyclone.
That's the truth?
If it's not the truth, you can send my undershirt to St. Paul, Minnesota, cash on delivery. If it's not the truth...
Was anybody hurt?
Not a soul. And it's the luckiest thing since the bullet that choked Billy Patterson. Why, that second-story veranda weighs tons and tons. It crashed like thunder. Busted the first-floor porch into smithereens. Broke every window in the house. There's chunks of lumber and splinters of wood scattered up and down Center Street for half a block.
You're not exaggerating, are you? You're not making a mountain out of some trivial accident?
No, sir. Hope to die if I've twisted the facts. Hey, why don't you people put on your hat and stroll over there? See for yourself. It's just like I say. Center Street is cluttered up with debris for half a block in both directions.
Well, what happened?
The doggone second-story veranda collapsed from old age. The pillars were weak.
I believe that. Ruthie and I noticed the place just last week when we were walking past. That upstairs porch that circles the house was sagging in half a dozen places.
Sure. It was bound to happen sooner or later. And it happened tonight. I'm surprised you individuals never heard the crash.
Where were you when it happened?
Standing out in front of the By Joe Picture Show. I was in the Society of Bluetooth Johnson. By George, we were in the 300 block on South Center in 2 seconds.
Looks like we did miss some excitement.
Missed half your life. Come on, slap on your hat. We'll go over there.
Oh, it's all over and done with now.
Probably still a crowd of people hanging around, though. No fooling. To look at that house, you'd think it got caught between 9 cyclones.
Uh-huh.
Come on, Gov. You and me will hike to Center Street.
I'd like to beg off, Arthur. It's too warm an evening to work myself up over a porch falling off a house.
Okay.
Certainly a good thing nobody got injured.
Yes, indeed.
I remember the place you're talking about very well. Just last week, Ruthie and I walked past. Seems to me she passed some remark. Look how that old upper-story porch sags or something.
Peculiar Rooster didn't give you the details when he come after Rotten Suitcase. Guess he was too excited.
Well, what was his big hurry for his brother's suitcase when there was so much free entertainment going on?
Oh, gosh. I haven't told you about Rotten yet.
What'd Rotten do?
Rotten Davis, Gov, had the most magnificent evening of his entire career.
How so?
He made off to the crowd. It was his fault the house collapsed.
Huh?
You should have seen him. He was running back and forth in front of the ruins screaming. I lost my temper, he kept yelling. I lost my temper. Yeah.
You mean
he was making a public spectacle out of himself, yeah. 5 minutes after the big crash, about 200 people were on the spot. They didn't know what happened. They just saw this house all busted to pieces and lumber laying around every place. And here was Rotten Davis, tearing his hair and rushing around crazy. I lost my temper, he kept screaming. I lost my temper.
The people got the notion Rotten had lost his temper and torn the whole house down?
Sure, they got that notion.
Oh, my.
It was a magnificent thing to witness. The crowd opened up an alley for Rotten to run back and forth in. And he run back and forth in it till who laid the chunk. I lost my temper, he hollered. I lost my temper, and look what I've done. Remember now, the house looked like it had been hit by a cyclone. An innocent bystander guess it'd take 9 men 8 days to do that much damage.
Oh, my.
Rotten Davis seen his opportunity and grabbed it. He had that enormous throng of people in the palm of his hand. If he'd looked tough at any of them, they'd have started for home 90 miles an hour. Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful, I tell you.
If I had a boy that was such a smarty show-off, I bet I'd...
And Rooster worked hand in glove with him. Rooster deserves 50% of the credit for his brother's sensational hoax.
I was going to inquire, what did Rooster want with the suitcase?
Wanted it to take back to Rotten. It's all plastered up with foreign labels, you know. Foreign labels impress the general public. Soon as Rotten got hold of that suitcase, he started running between the divided crowd of people with it. I told you they separated and left him space to run back and forth in, didn't I?
Yeah.
Made kind of a lane for him. Well, he'd run from one end of the lane to the other. When he got to one end, he'd stop and set down his suitcase. Then he'd give the people a chance to read the foreign labels. Nome, Alaska, London, England, Paris, France, Rotterdam, Holland, Brussels, Belgium, Stockholm, Sweden, and so on. All the time, he kept hollering he'd lost his temper and torn down a house. Then he'd pick up his suitcase and run to the other end of the lane. Do the same thing over again. I lost control of my temper, he screamed. I lost control of my temper and tore down this house in 3 minutes with my bare hands.
His mother ought to take him by the coat collar.
And let me tell you another trick he used to heighten the effect. He was wearing goggles. When he sent Rooster after his suitcase, he also had him stop by home and pick up an aviator's helmet and goggles that used to belong to some friend of his that owned a motorcycle. Oh, it was magnificent, God.
Bet it was.
Carrying his suitcase all plastered up with foreign labels and wearing an aviator's helmet on his head with the goggles pulled down over his eyes and running back and forth like he'd gone crazy.
I lost my temper.
Yeah.
For a boy that's almost a grown-up man.
And every once in a while, he'd holler to Rooster. Hey, he'd holler. How many bodies have they found so far? And Rooster, he was back in the shadows, would put on a deep voice and answer, 6 so far, 7 so far, 8 so far. You know.
Ain't he going on 19 years old, Rush?
Rotten? Yeah.
Well, imagine a boy 19 years old behaving.
Mom, he had the most magnificent evening of his entire career.
I'd give him the most magnificent...
Oh, and another feature that was dandy. 3 young ladies he likes were in the crowd. 3 very handsome young ladies he's ambitious to escort to the picture show and places were present.
I bet he's their hero now.
Oh, boy.
You seem to have had just about as satisfactory an evening as Rotten did.
I had a delightful evening. A delightful evening.
Which concludes another brief interlude at the small house halfway up in the next block. Well, sir, the evening meal has been over only a little while as we join our friends in the small house halfway up in the next block now. And we find Mr. and Mrs. Victor Gook and young Mr. Rush Gook enjoying a season of postprandial ease in the living room. Their serenity is short-lived, however, for Sade has just produced consternation. Listen.
You don't mean to tell me that you want me to be going over there in Holland? Well, it's 190 degrees in the shade, Sade. I'd melt into a... You were joking all the time, weren't you?
Not joking a bit.
You mean to tell me that you'd have me move forward?
Please. Person makes an innocent little remark and fellas jump out of their undershirts screaming like panthers.
Then you were joking.
No.
You're serious when you suggest going over in Donahue's basement and carrying out 2 tons of coal?
It's got to be done, hasn't it?
Mom, tonight's the night the fat businessmen play handball down at the YMCA.
Oh, you don't have to be there, though. I was cute. Before I mentioned the coal, I said, what you going to do this evening, Vic? Mr. Vic said, nothing. I said, you got anything up your sleeve, Rush? Mr. Rush said, no.
A very, very ingenious trap.
Oh, what you say we don't bother going through a lot of talky-talk and stuff? What you say we slip into our overalls and take care of this little job?
Your mother calls moving 2 tons of coal a little job.
You don't have to move it all this evening.
You're too kind, Sadie. Your heart is bigger in the tub. But I can't let you get away with so much generosity. I'll not only move your 2 tons of coal this evening, but I'll also paint the house and shingle the roof.
Some fellas hate work like they hate a snake.
Most fellas hate the idea of lugging coal around on a stifling hot day.
It's not stifling hot now. The cool of the evening set in. Why, I bet if you glance at the thermometer, you'll know... Rush, don't strain yourself fidgeting around. You're not going anyplace.
Fat businessmen are playing handball down at the YM.
Fat businessmen down at the YM never entered your noodle till I mentioned coal.
Fat businessmen down at the
Go
YM.
fetch you and your father's overalls.
Kiddo, let us leaven our good impulses with common sense. Before we plunge into some rash course of action, let us consider and reflect. Now, you know
Skip
yourself that...
Overalls,
Yes,
cellar way.
yes.
Fat businessmen down at the
Wait,
YM.
Rush.
What do you mean, wait, Rush? I told him to do something. Scoot, Rush.
Fat businessmen down at the YM are playing handball and...
Wait,
coal
Rush.
and weather hiding up the person down
After the mama's given the child a definite order.
Getting back to the subject of Donahue's and their 2 tons of half-wit coal, may I humbly venture the opinion that summertime is no
Let
time
me
to be
venture an opinion once. They moved away from Virginia Avenue, leaving that lovely pile of coal they couldn't take with them. They said they'd make us a gift of it. Coal is expensive, and here's a monstrous, big, beautiful heap of it we can have for nothing. Shall we let it go?
I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say we're hardly dying for coal in the middle of summer. We've got a long time to wait before the wintry blasts force us to huddle near the furnace and blow our breath on our blue fingers.
You'd wait till next December, huh?
I'd certainly wait till dark days are over. I'd certainly wait
Nick,
until...
don't you appreciate why we ought to get that coal in our cellar as quick as we can?
No.
2 good, solid reasons.
Mutt and Jeff, I suppose. Oh, heck, kiddo, let's
2
forget...
good, solid reasons.
What are they?
One is Mr. Erickson may rent his house any minute. If a new family moved in next door and took possession, what could we do? I bet you hadn't thought of that, had you?
No, but
It's
on the
true,
other...
isn't it? Could we go over next door in some strange family's basement and start carrying away coal? We could not. Why, the chief of police would be here on his motorcycle so fast it'd make your head swim. And besides
My
that...
overalls are all wrinkled.
What?
My overalls are all wrinkled.
Oh, how horrible. Now you won't be able to do a lick of work. Person certainly can't accomplish anything with wrinkled overalls. Put them on.
Mm-hmm.
And let's not have any more nonsense. Give your father his.
I don't want mine.
Oh, yes, you do. You'd be black as the 9 of diamonds in 6 seconds if you tried carrying basket loads of coal across the yard wearing a good...
Basket loads of coal?
Sure.
You propose transporting 2 tons of coal by means of rotten little measly baskets?
I don't know as they're so rotten or measly either. Them market baskets down cellar are substantial and hold a good deal.
Why don't we use teaspoons?
Be slipping them on, Rush.
Or here, I got a cavity in my tooth. I'll use that to haul coal in. If disgusting little vulgar market baskets are good
Well,
enough
what would
to
you
haul...
use? A team of horses and a wagon? The coal has to be carried from Donahue's basement to our basement. Distance of about 15 feet.
Surely you listen to a reasonable...
Rush, get into them overalls. I'm not going to tell you again.
The handmen playing fat ball down at the YM are about to
Oh,
start...
the handmen playing fat ball down at the YM.
I mean the fat men playing handball. Fat men playing handball down at the
Get
YM.
in them overalls. And you too, Vic. Actually, now, don't you think it's a little ridiculous to waste all this time? You got no plans for this evening. All you do'd be go sit out in the porch swing. Couple of hours of good wholesome exercise would do you good.
Getting dark. Can't work in the dark.
Drowning man grabbing for straws.
What?
Nothing. You won't have to work in the dark. Soon as it gets dark, you can quit.
You said there was 2 reasons why it was necessary to hurry up and break my back after a hot, miserable day, lugging coal around like a slob of a half-wit hippopotamus.
Yeah, 2 reasons. One of them is Mr. Erickson might get his house rented any minute. Might get it rid tomorrow. If that happened, we'd be out our lovely 2 tons of coal.
What's the other reason?
The other reason is I'm pretty sure Mr. Erickson is helping himself to that coal himself.
Yeah?
Yes. I'm pretty sure there's not a day goes by but what he don't stop by and get a few chunks and carry 'em off home in that big satchel of his.
Rather far-fetched, don't you think?
It's Miss Donna who suspects him. She told me yesterday the pile had dwindled something fierce. And don't that sound like him? Why, if he's coming every day and helping himself to a chunk of coal and sneaking it away in his satchel, it won't be very long.
Telephone is ringing.
See who it is, Rush.
Probably Bluetooth Johnson.
Well, if it is, don't get in any long, drawn-out conversations.
He probably wants me to go down to YM and watch the fat men play handball.
Handmen play fatball.
When I said handmen play fatball, I naturally was confused with fat men.
Play handball, yeah. Answer the phone before the party hangs up.
Hello? Hello, Miss Stembottom. Just fine, thanks.
500?
Yes.
Sure.
Miss Stembottom, ma'am.
Tell him to come right over.
Well, if you people plan to indulge in cards, why can't I proceed on down to YM and witness
The handmen play fatball. Get out of the way.
Tell him to come right on over.
Be putting on your overalls. Hello there, Third Lieutenant Stanley. No, finished supper ages ago. Just sitting here with our teeth in our mouth. Uh-huh. Why, say, that sounds fine. Sure, the big muckety-muck says wonderful.
Tell him to come right over.
Why don't you do that? We'll be here. Oh, sure. All right, we'll be looking for you, lady. You bet. All right, Ruthie. Goodbye.
You coming right over?
Oh, coming right over. It's not 6:30 yet.
Well, when are they coming?
When they usually come, around 7:45 or kind of halfway in around through there.
Call back and say we'd like to get an early start. Say Victor wants to get up early in the morning, and if it's all the same to
Now
them,
listen, you boys are going to move that coal.
Oh,
You
Mom,
mean to say
no
that
heart.
you're still
And
insisting
there's
on
nothing
me carrying coal over
about
with
it. Mr. Erickson might get his house rented any second, and we'd be out our lovely heap of coal.
Will
Why
you
must
please
it be
tell
tonight
me
when
how
the
I'm
fat
going
men
to be
are playing
loving
handball?
coal
And
and
please,
paying
I'd
5
at
bills?
least 100
Well,
in the
Go down cellar and get the market baskets, and then skip on over to Donahue's. Put on your overalls, Rush. Put on your overalls, Vic. And then run along. I'm a lady with lots of responsibility. I've got 2 little boys to look after and watch over. 2 little tiny helpless boys.
Which concludes another brief interlude at the small house halfway up in the next block.
Thank you for listening to and showing your support for my podcast. If you would like to receive notifications of when new episodes are posted, please subscribe to my channel. Subscriptions are 100% free, and they really help me get an idea of how I'm doing. Well, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, stay safe, wish you well, and as always, peace.